today's video. So I've been wanting to make this video for quite a while. I actually sat down when Wes was probably 5 or 6 months old to kind of talk about this topic. But I felt really unseasoned at that point, and I really wasn't in a headspace to be creating content regularly, so I just didn't pursue it. But now I'm ready to make this video. We completed our breastfeeding journey in March, right after Wes turned 13 months. And it was very strange. He just kind of stopped wanting to breastfeed, which was fine. We had been transitioning to him to milk. So yeah, it was a very smooth transition. Morning, I can't remember what I did. It's been so long. But I do distinctly remember my breastfeeding journey and, every step of the way. So I did want to talk about that. And then I wanted to get into some tips and tricks that I have for you. And I'm also going to touch on a few tips for dads, or, non-breastfeeding partners, and how you can support your breastfeeding partner at a time that feels really helpless for dads, and for the folks that aren't breastfeeding, to support that breastfeeding partner. So I do have some tips for you that come from my husband and how we dealt. So let's get into my breastfeeding journey. So it did not start easily. Actually, I remember, first off, Wes's latch was awful because he came out with such force that he was all tight and his jaw was all tight. So when the first few times I tried to breastfeed him, he just destroyed my nipples. Sorry, TMI, but this is a breastfeeding video, so it's gonna happen. So I had, just a little warning, it's gross. I had a scab completely over one nipple by day 2. I was in so much pain constantly, and the hospital also had me pumping, power pumping, every time I fed him because my milk wasn't coming. I don't know, they wanted my milk to come in. He had a blood sugar issue, my milk needed to come in. So there was all this stuff going on. I was in a lot of pain, and I distinctly remember one of the lactation consultants coming in, and she looked at my breasts and she pointed at the one that had was completely scabbed over, and she was like, so we're just gonna let that one rest, and you can just pump that one, but we're not gonna put baby on that one. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I was in so much pain. It was hard. The beginning was rough. And then after a few days in the NICU, we got home, and I didn't have any confidence in my ability to breastfeed. So after every breastfeeding session, I would give him formula because I didn't think he was going to be getting enough. Looking back on that, I was definitely overfeeding him. He was definitely giving me signs that he didn't want to eat, but I was so wrapped up in thinking that my body wasn't enough and that I wasn't providing enough that I just assumed that he was hungry all the time, that every cue or every cry was because he was hungry because I wasn't providing enough. After a few months, I learned the difference between his cues, and I also learned to be a little more confident in myself. So I did eventually stop overfeeding him, which led to a different issue. So when I stopped giving him formula after every feed, he lost weight. So we went to the doctor, they got nervous, I got nervous because they got nervous, but I also told them, hey, I think I've been overfeeding him. So the weight that you saw the first couple visits, I think, was above and beyond what he was actually supposed to be at or would have been at if I had just been straight breastfeeding the whole time. So now that I'm just straight breastfeeding, he's lost some weight because I'm no longer overfeeding him. So he's dropped down to probably where he would have been if I had just been breastfeeding. And the doctor was in agreement with me that sounded very likely. So we just did, I think it was weekly weight checks for just a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We had to go in, and it was fine. After that, he was gaining weight. It just needed, my body needed to adjust to making that milk. So let's talk about what that adjustment required. And I want to say right now that this sounds insane, because it is insane, because I was going a little insane from postpartum depression and anxiety. So I was pushing myself too hard to meet these expectations that I had on myself. So what I did to get my body to kick in and make the milk that I needed to make was I literally laid in bed with Wes for 5 days straight. I was losing my mind by the end of it, but by the end of it, we were breastfeeding. So that was my goal, and I did it. I met my goal, and I'm proud of myself for that, but I don't think anybody necessarily needs to or should try that hard. I think a lot of factors went into it. I think I was putting myself under a lot of stress. I think my body was producing a lot of adrenaline because I have anxiety anyway. And I just remember right after giving birth to him, my adrenaline just it was insane. It was insane. I could not close my eyes. So I think that just carried on for several months, and adrenaline production reduces milk production. So I wasn't relaxing, I wasn't feeding myself properly. There were so many factors. So I think if I had taken care of those other things, it probably wouldn't have taken so long. But I didn't take care of those other things, so it did take very long. All that to say, we made it. I got to the point where I was breastfeeding him consistently all the time, barely needing to use formula. So around 4 months I was breastfeeding all the time, but then at night I would give him a bottle of milk with like a scoop of formula in it, again because I still wasn't confident. Like, I had gotten to a point of confidence that was greater than I started, but I wasn't fully confident. We cut out that bottle probably around 6 months, and I was just breastfeeding. And then I breastfed from 6 months to 13 months exclusively, like fully exclusively, with like baby-led. We started baby-led weaning around 6 months. So yeah, around 6 months it did definitely chill out. Everything kind of chilled out with me too. I mean, not everything, but I was feeling more level, and I was producing better, I think, because things had kind of evened out. So that's my breastfeeding journey in a large nutshell. So let's get into the tips and tricks that I have. So first I wanted to talk about tools. And the first thing that I wanted to discuss was a nipple balm. So you're definitely gonna want some sort of nipple balm, or just straight up like virgin coconut oil is great. That's what I used. And what that does is moisturizes your nipples and keeps them protected. So with the coconut oil, it definitely helped with the protection and kind of like lubrication between, like, they have spit and stuff. This is a lot, I know. It just protected. So it just acted like a balm on my nipples, and it protected them. And it definitely helped with that scab that was forming. It helped soften everything and keep things from getting too tight. Like my skin as it was healing and learning to, handle what was happening to it. And then also with coconut oil, at least, it's anti-fungal, I'm pretty sure. So when I got thrush, which I'll discuss in a bit when I go over some concerns such as thrush, but I got thrush. So instead of the harsh like cream that I got from the doctor, I was using coconut oil and just making sure I was keeping everything dry and literally just walking around shirtless constantly. And that helped because coconut oil does act like an antifungal. So I would get it like in his mouth and get it on my nipple before, just to try to prevent the transfer. Coconut oil is good. You also if you find that you're having issues like I was having with pain and like scabbing and stuff, or if you have like really flat nipples, or inverted nipples. I'll just insert a picture of a nipple shield. So I got my nipple shields from the hospital. They just gave it to me. I also got one when I went to visit a lactation consultant after being discharged. What the nipple shield does is it shields your nipple, and it kind of gives baby, if you have like flat nipples. I kind of had flat nipples. I don't have flat nipples anymore, but I did at the beginning. And it gives baby something to latch onto, and as they suck, your nipple will like draw out and fill in that space. And then like the more you breastfeed, the more your nipple will protrude. Nipple shields are great. The one downside is that they prevent that contact of the, or they don't prevent, but they lower the contact of the baby's saliva to your areola and to your nipple itself, which is important. There is a lot of exchange of information there. Like your body learns a lot about what baby needs through their saliva and the contact with your nipple. There are nipple shields that have a little cutout to kind of increase that contact and aid in that a little bit. But yeah, nipple shields are great. And I only used it for probably 3 months, and then I just decided I wanted to try to not need it anymore. But yeah, nipple shields are great. I would ask your lactation consultant about those if they're not just suggested to you. Like I had nurses and lactation consultants and stuff, like everyone was suggesting nipple shields. Another tool that you will probably want is a nursing pillow. I got the Boppy. Mine is a little stained with breast milk and baby spit up, but I do have the Boppy, and I liked it. I'm gonna next time, I think, get the My Breast Friend, and I'll try to insert a picture of that here, because one, it's more firm. This was so it's hard to breastfeed a newborn in the first place because they're all floppy, and this is like soft, and my baby was big, so it got like even squishier very quickly, so it didn't really lend a lot of support. The My Breast Friend, I used it when I went to a lactation consultant. It's more firm, and it also hooks around your back, and it has a pocket. I don't know what I would put in that pocket. Probably a drink and a snack for myself. But, you know, I love things that have pockets. So, it has a pocket. So I'm gonna definitely try to get the My Breast Friend next time. This is great for like propping baby up and stuff later, but I don't know that I would necessarily use it to nurse with the first time. And let me just say, don't bring this to the hospital with you when you're giving birth. I brought mine, and I felt like a ding dong because they were just setting me up with pillows. Every time I would try to break it out, the nurses would like, they wouldn't roll their eyes, but I could get that vibe that I was like, you know, taking too much time to do it. But whatever, I wanted to practice. You might also want to have some bottles on hand for emergencies, or if you ever want to do anything without your baby. Truly, like, I mean, somebody's got to feed them, you know? So the bottles that we really like, we tried the Dr. Brown's, and they didn't, he didn't really seem to like them so much. Wes didn't. So the bottles that we ended up using and really liking were these Philips Avent bottles. And the reason that I had gone with these, so the Dr. Brown's were samples. The reason I purchased these was because the nipple is fatter and more like an actual breast and a nipple, and this is flat. So I was thinking that it would be a lot easier for baby to transition between the two and not have nipple confusion, which I don't think nipple confusion is really shouldn't be as much of a concern as it is. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, these were great. And then the cool thing about like Spectra is the tops of the A-vent bottles go on the Spectra bottles. Anyway, I'll talk about pumps in a minute. You'll definitely want to have bottles on hand, and you'll want to have them washed and sanitized before you bring baby home. I didn't, and I remember the night that we were like, oh, let's just give him a bottle, you know, have kind of a break. And I was like, I haven't washed any of the bottles. So then I was frantically washing a bottle and boiling the bottle. It was ridiculous. It was like 10 at night. Fail. Learn from my mistakes. Pumps. All right, so I actually have two different pumps here. I have a Medela and a Spectra. I was graciously gifted this Medela from my sister-in-law, and it served me so well. But I did decide to try out the Spectra. I paid like full price for it. I just really wanted to try it. I'd heard really good things, and I do very much like the Spectra. I do like the Medela. It's a little loud, but it does come with this backpack. This one is really good for on the go, basically. Like if you're a working mom, this one's really good because it also comes with like an attachment that you can plug in anywhere. I have the Spectra, what kind is this? S2 Plus, the pink one. So I really like this one. It's really, really quiet, and I thought it was really effective. But that brings me to my next point, which is the importance of fit for your pump parts. I learned after trial and error that I need two different valves. Those are not valves. Tubey things, the flanges that go on your boobies. I need them to be two different diameters because I've got different sizes, I've got different nipples, not everything's the same. That is to say, there is such a thing as an incorrect fit and a correct fit, and fit really makes a huge difference in your milk production. If your flange is too small, you're gonna get a lot of irritation, which I experienced. It was awful. If your flange is too big, you're not going to get proper suction, which I also experienced and made me think that I wasn't making enough milk. So then, you know, it's like a Goldilocks situation. Once you find the right fit, it's just right. And I don't know why I'm sitting here like, yeah, so once I found the right fit of flange, my milk production was great. And I think that maybe if I had tried out, or also you want to get, like, if you're having issues, if your breast pump was working really well and then you are like, oh no, I'm producing less and less, you want to check the valves. On the Medela, they look like this, these little like membrane things. You might want to replace these. They're a little different on the Spectra. They're just like white rubber pieces. Replacing those can help a lot because they lend a lot to the suction, and if they've gone soft, then the suction's not so great. You want to make sure you're cleaning your parts well. The tubing needs to be cleaned well and dried out well, and sometimes you just need new tubing because like the connections at the end have loosened, and again that influences the suction. So there are a lot of factors to what makes a pump work properly. Okay, so honestly, I think that was it for tools. So next, let's talk nutrition, because that is another really important aspect of breastfeeding. So let's start with your prenatal vitamins. You want to still be taking prenatal vitamins when you're breastfeeding because you want to make sure that you are getting enough iron and other such nutrients so that you are producing enough milk, because your body isn't going to keep producing if it's not getting enough good stuff, you know? It's going to be like, well, I need to conserve energy, so I guess I'm done making milk. And then you want to also make sure that you're sending those nutrients toward your baby, you know? Your body does it. You just got to take those vitamins. You want to be eating some iron-rich foods because iron, would be, you know, it's good for your baby, but it also does help your milk production. And so I used to eat oatmeal every day, and I will insert here my oatmeal recipe because it's really easy. I do use the microwave, so if you don't want to use your microwave, I'm sorry, it's not going to be as simple, but it literally took me 6 minutes in the morning, which is really all I had time for with a newborn. That would keep me full, and definitely helped my milk production. I would not eat oatmeal for like several days and it would kind of go down a little. You also want to drink a lot of water, but you don't want to overhydrate. So one thing I learned is that you can overhydrate, and that can negatively affect your milk production because you're gonna kind of dilute the nutrients, you're gonna dilute the fats, you're gonna dilute your milk. You wanna drink to thirst. So when you're thirsty, you wanna drink, but you don't wanna be like, oh, I'm not even thirsty, but I have to drink another gallon of water, you know, like you don't wanna fill yourself too much. You also could drink coconut water or Body Armor. I drank Body Armor because they were yummy. Definitely did help. And it kept me also feeling a little more hydrated. It's a very dehydrating process, breastfeeding. Next, I wanted to talk about some interventions. So if you're having issues with breastfeeding, so the first thing that we did while we were in the hospital, it was like day 2, once they noticed, like a lactation saw how tight he was when he was latching on, an osteopath came in, and this was so cool to watch. She came in and literally just like stuck her hands under him and just like slightly move him. And it took probably 15 minutes. It was so interesting. And then she popped him back on, and it was amazing. It was amazing. He could actually like open his mouth fully to latch and stuff. So if that isn't something that's suggested to you by a nurse or a lactation consultant, I would suggest asking if there's an osteopath available to do an osteopathic manipulation on your baby. It sounds scary, but it looks pretty interesting, and it does help a lot. It helps loosen them up so they can so their muscles can function the way that they're meant to function. Another thing that you might want to take a look at if you're having issues is lip or tongue ties. They do not only just affect breastfeeding, but in the long run, they can affect your baby's oral development and speech development. So they are like an important thing to take a look into. I have learned that for some reason, there's like debate about the importance of taking care of lip or tongue ties. A lot of doctors don't seem to think it matters. But then if you go to like a pediatric dentist, they know that it matters because they study the development of the mouth. If you look at your baby's mouth, and I'll try to insert here some pictures of lip and tongue ties of like varying degrees. And if you look in your baby's mouth and you see what you think is a tongue tie, or if you're experiencing symptoms of tongue tie, if you're hearing clicking when baby breastfeeds, like every time they go to suck, you hear like a click, 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 or if your nipple is pinched or kind of lipstick shaped. What else? The pain is a big one. If they're excessively gassy, that can be a symptom. There are several symptoms that if you just Google La Leche League, I'll put that on the screen. La Leche League has a lot of great information about breastfeeding interventions if you need help. And then as far as support for you, mom, you need support. It is a very solitary experience, breastfeeding. Like dad will be there to try to support you, but you're the one feeding your baby, you know? So it can make you kind of feel like you're living on an island sometimes. So I would definitely check out breastfeeding support groups. I did not take advantage of them, unfortunately. I should have, but there should be something available near you. Again, La Leche League has breastfeeding support groups. My local hospital, the one that I gave birth at, had a breastfeeding support group that was free. So yeah, there are a lot of resources available in case you're having trouble. Next, I wanted to give some tips for while you're breastfeeding. So while you have baby on your boob, you want to relax as much as is possible. Breastfeeding can be really stressful. There's a lot going on, especially when you're learning about it in the hospital and people are like manipulating you and like trying to pop baby on your boob, which first off, you shouldn't let anybody touch baby's head. It's another thing I learned that influences how they latch and the muscles and stuff. But you want to try to relax and you want to just think about your milk flowing. If you're tight up and anxious like I was, you're gonna have a harder time. One thing that I didn't discover until probably 3 months in, when I was starting to get desperate, was the Thompson method. And it's a method of getting baby onto your breast that doesn't put any pressure on their head, and is very natural for them. So they're basically, you're guiding them, like lactation consultants will say, guide baby to your boob, but you're like holding baby's head and putting baby on your boob. This is gently, literally like log rolling baby toward your boob, and then baby just like latches on. I remember so distinctly when I found this method on YouTube. I watched the video and I had Wes sitting next to me, and I watched the video and I was like, okay, like I was in such a bad place already because I just was mentally in a bad place. I thought I was not serving my baby with my body properly, whatever. So I watched this video and I was like, okay, I think I can do that. And I picked him up and I was like shaking and I like rolled him to me. He latched on. I didn't feel pain. I felt a letdown, like really felt a letdown, whereas I had felt kind of some letdowns. When you feel a letdown, you know, like you really know. And then I remembered when I watched that video, they showed a baby after the baby had eaten, the baby popped off and fell asleep and was like milk drunk, you know, and that's what they said would happen. It's like when baby's satisfied, they'll fall asleep. And so I was feeding Wes and he popped off and he passed out and it looked exactly like the baby on the video. Sorry. Oof. It looked exactly like the baby on the video, and I was so relieved that I had done it, like really done it. Every other time hadn't felt right, and this time it felt like I'd actually done it, and he was satisfied and I had fed him. So I highly suggest checking out the Thompson method. I'm very thankful for it. It makes me emotional. Another great method is side lying. I love side lying breastfeeding. It's so relaxing to you. It's especially relaxing because you're laying down, so that helps a lot. And then it removes that pressure on baby from your arms and any hands. You just lay up next to baby and pop them on your boob and you just hang out. I did so much side lying breastfeeding. Like anytime I could, I was side lying. So then some tips for while you're pumping. Again, you want to relax. Think about your milk flowing. And just another thing is you want to think about baby, or if baby isn't around, watch videos or look at pictures. I used to watch videos of Wes while I was pumping, and that definitely helped. Another big thing, and I wish I had done this more often or hadn't done this, but don't watch your milk come out. Don't watch your milk fill the bottle, because that's just going to make you stressed, and you're going to be thinking about like, why aren't I producing more? Why haven't I reached the 1 yet? You know, throw on a YouTube video, whatever. Just don't even look. If you have to, like, get like a tent or something to put over so you're not looking at the bottles. Don't look at the bottles, okay? Don't watch them fill. Do something else. Don't think about it. just let it ride. And again, I just wanted to reiterate the importance of finding the right fit of the flanges for you, the importance of checking the part accessories like the tubes and the membranes or the valves. And then I wanted to go over some common concerns about breastfeeding. So nipple confusion is definitely a concern that I've seen. So that's where a concern that if baby goes from breast to pacifier or breast to bottle, that they might start preferring those other nipples, or they might get somehow confused about what to do with your nipple. I never experienced that. So he never seemed to have a preference for any nipple or get confused if I tried to go between breast and bottle. And then one thing I did experience was thrush, which sucked, but you can get through it. So how that happened for me was I wasn't changing my disposable nipple pads enough, so they were getting moist, and I was just like leaving. I wasn't even thinking about it. Like I didn't think about that I should be changing them out more often, but I should have been, because it builds up bacteria that just goes right back into your nipple, and in that kind of moist environment, it starts thriving and, you know, reproducing, and then you get thrush, and then your baby gets thrush, and then it keeps going back and forth and back and forth. So you can help yourself avoid that by changing out your disposable nipple pads pretty often, and then also using coconut oil regularly since it's an antifungal. Just talk to your doctor. It really, like, it does hurt, but it'll be okay, and it won't necessarily end your breastfeeding journey. Another concern I see a lot is when baby wants to eat constantly, mom doesn't feel adequate, and that happened to me. But one thing I later on was able to remind myself was that I was providing him not only nutrition and food through breastfeeding, but comfort. So when babies are going through growth spurts or leaps or teething, they're uncomfortable and they're unhappy and they just want to be close, and breastfeeding provides comfort for them. And especially when they're teething, it provides some stimulation to that area, or suction kind of helps negate the pain of teething. So those were just some concerns that I wanted to touch on. And then I had some tips for dads and how you can be supportive of your breastfeeding partner, because some don't feel like they want to feel more involved, and they want to feel like they're being really supportive and do more than, you know, just kind of, you're doing a great job, you know. And we can feel a little helpless in the face of so much change. Like, I can totally understand. Like, you're just like sitting there, life has completely changed, and you don't know how to help or how to have any control over the situation. It's a lot to go through. So I wanted to say to any dads that are watching with your partners that you're involved just by being there, really truly, just by being there to talk, like chat about anything, or be there to support when her nipples are cracked and bleeding and she's crying about it, and you just, you know, can be there to rub her back, bring her snacks. It does make a huge difference, and that is an important role that you play. And another big tip I wanted to say is to remember that this is temporary. I know that it seems like it's all baby and mom right now, because it really is. Baby is doing a lot of growing and needs the nutrition that mom provides. It's biology. It has nothing to do with you. It doesn't mean that baby doesn't like you if baby wants mom all the time. There's a lot going on that is already dictated, and the mother-baby relationship is just based on survival, really. So when baby has reached the point where they can survive without, you know, mother's milk so much, you'll have that time. It'll become so much more about you. And that's what happened with us, is like right around a year when he stopped breastfeeding, now he's constantly all about his dad, and it's fine. I finally get some time to myself, but there will be that transition. There will be a time when you're actually probably kind of sick of it and would wish that he'd go back to loving his mom all the time, you know? So that's it. I think this video is probably already too long. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that I was able to give you some really good tips. I hope that you found this helpful and encouraging. Above all, I just want to say, while breastfeeding is really great and the bond is really great, fed is absolutely best. I think fed is absolutely best. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't feel like a failure if it doesn't happen. You know, the only failure would be never feeding your baby, you know? If you have to use formula, use formula. If you want to use formula, use formula. Do whatever works for you and works for your baby. You know, you don't necessarily need to lay in bed for 5 days straight to make it happen. Again, I was losing my mind. So, you know, just do what works for you and what makes you and baby happy. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more from me. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss any uploads. And I'll see you guys next time.